Good morning, everybody. My colleagues and dignitaries on the dais, the industry veterans and the present in the audience, the media, and the other delegates. And also the award winners, out of which only I see one here, Dr. Upadhyay, but I was hoping to see the rest of them also here. It's a privilege and honor to be here today at this prestigious event hosted by Voice and Data and speaking in presence of such esteemed industry stalwarts who are being recognized for their contribution today. And to be able to discuss one of the pressing challenges of our time, the digital divide. I extend my sincere gratitude to the organizers for providing me an opportunity to reflect on the critical gaps in the digital access. So I'll generally be focusing on the rural broadband for inclusive growth. The urban-rural digital divide is arguably the most critical digital divide that we face today, as nearly 65% of our India's population lives in rural areas, but still does not have reliable mobile or internet connectivity. While our cities race ahead with 5G and fiber broadband, many villages still struggle with basic connectivity. This divide means a rural student may miss out on his online class, or an urban student takes it for granted, or a farmer may remain unaware of the digital marketplace where he could double or get much more yield for his income. As we see, the digital exclusion in Bharat, that is the rural India, really stems from three fundamental barriers. The first is connectivity, the second is affordability, and the third is digital literacy. And we'll address all three. We need to address all three to become a Viksit Bharat. While basic mobile coverage has reached about 90 to 95% of the population, yet affordable, reliable, and high-speed, high-capacity internet that enables video classes, telemedicine, or e-banking is often missing. So the connectivity gap is the first and foremost hurdle we must overcome. Let's see some of the data points to give a difference between the urban and the rural density numbers. When one talks of an internet density, that is the total number of internet subscribers per 100 population, the urban internet teledensity is over 111%, while the rural net density is only about 45%. This brings out an urban-rural divide of about 67%. A massive number of people remain offline, and this gap, surprisingly, the last 4 or 5 years, is remaining about stagnant. It's not that it is improving, so therefore there's a need to look into it. Fixed broadband still reaches only about 3% of the households, and that too mainly in the big cities, while many villages remain without reliable coverage. At roughly rupees 150 per GB versus rupees 10 per GB on mobile, the fixed broadband offers dramatically lower data costs. It delivers consistently higher speeds and huge amounts of data. Average consumption on fixed broadband is anywhere between 200 to 400 GB per month. That is nearly 10 times the 20 GB typical which is done per month for a mobile subscriber. So the case for fiber-based fixed broadband is therefore economically and technologically strong. Out of a total of 2.22 lakh gram panchayats which were envisaged as part of the phase 1 and 2 of the BharatNet, 2.13 lakh gram panchayats have been made service ready. The amended BharatNet 3, which is now in progress, aims to provide this fiber optic connectivity to the remaining 3.84 lakhs in the country on a demand basis, and also to provide as much as 1.5 crore rural home fiber connections. At a cost of nearly 1.4 lakh crores, it is one of the biggest government-funded fiber project globally. The BharatNet program, when fully lit, will be a game changer, with a connected Gram Panchayat not only having a fiber cable connected, but an active, working internet connection accessible to the people. In addition, a total of 35,500 villages are being covered under the ongoing USOF schemes. These are all located in rural, remote, inaccessible areas and in difficult terrain like hills, dense forests, etc. So in addition, so what we need to do is, we need to adopt, we've done enough on the mobile front. The mobile has really reached a large percentage of or majority of the country's both the population as well as the geography. But there's a need now to also follow it up with a good fiber connectivity. As I said earlier, it is economically better, the rates are better, the data throughput is much higher, and the total data usage on a fiber, fixed fiber connectivity is much better. One of the ways to do it is to have a fiber first policy that is against in all infrastructure development. Whenever we build a new highway or we power line or lay water pipelines, we should concurrently lay fiber ducts along with it. This policy approach can dramatically reduce the cost of expanding fiber by piggybacking on the other projects, and we also need to incentivize fiber to the home in rural areas. One of the concerns has been for the fiber, the right-of-way, which the government, I must compliment them, has been addressing it very rigorously. They have already notified the ROW rules under the Telecom Act 2023, and now it is just the operational issues of having it implemented at each state level or each state following it is what is pending. But the government has done a lot towards this, and I'm sure as we go along in the future, this would ease the laying down of OFC for the rest of the, in the rural areas and other places. A synergetic duo of fiber-based fixed broadband with Wi-Fi networks is a crucial piece in the whole puzzle. Now, even if the fiber reaches a village, how do we deliver connectivity to people's devices? This is where Wi-Fi or other last-mile wireless solutions come into play. Wi-Fi can be a low-cost, high-impact tool to spread connectivity within villages, especially when combined with the BharatNet fiber backhaul. A key initiative here is the PM Vani, the Prime Minister's Wi-Fi Access Network Interface, launched in 2020. PM Vani is a decentralized approach to public Wi-Fi, enabling a small entrepreneurs to set up Wi-Fi hotspots. Under this scheme, any local shopkeeper or individual can become a PDO, which is a public data operator like the erstwhile we had the PCOs, and share their internet, say from BharatNet or any other broadband source, with the public for a nominal fee. This creates a micro-entrepreneurship model, or the Bharat, what is also called the Bharat Udyami model, launched by BSNL in support with the DBN, Digital Bharat Nidhi. They will take off from the fiber termination in the Gram Panchayat to the various community buildings in the village to set up Wi-Fi hotspots. A village youth can start an internet kiosk or a Wi-Fi hotspot as a business, selling sachet-sized data packs to neighbors at affordable rates. This model leverages the BharatNet for backhaul and Wi-Fi for access and is well suited to India's diverse rural needs. Importantly, this approach fosters community involvement in which, rather than only the big telcos or others providing connectivity, local people become stakeholders in expanding the digital access. However, unfortunately, the progress and proliferation of PM-WANI-based public Wi-Fi hotspots has been slow due to certain practical bottlenecks. We are much behind the bold target of 10 million public Wi-Fi spots by 2022, which was part of the NDCP, National Digital Communication Policy of 2018. There have been some hurdles, mainly pertaining to the high costs for the backhaul bandwidth being charged by the, which are being charged to them. But DoT has been very proactive and has amended the PM-WANI framework in September 24, wherein, among other things, they have decided to do away with the need for the PDOs or PDOAs to have a commercial agreement with the TSPs and ISPs, so as to enable them to obtain bandwidth via aggregators easily and at reasonable price. In addition, TRAI is currently looking at revising the tariff structure. They have come out with two draft TTOs, telecommunication tariff order, one in August 24 and one in early this year, and we await the final tariff order from them. Encouragingly, the government is also taking steps to enable the next generation of the Wi-Fi services on the front of delicensing spectrum. The recently issued draft rules to delicense the lower 6 MHz band is going to be a game changer. Once finalized, it will open up 500 MHz of new spectrum for Wi-Fi 6E and 7 use, enabling next generation Wi-Fi with multi-gigabit capacity in schools, health centers, and public spaces across rural India. In fact, we feel that this move should be steadfastly followed up by delicensing another 160 megahertz of this band, so as to allow at least 320 megahertz, two 320 megahertz wide channels to be made available simultaneously for high-speed apps and data usage, and also any combination of the various 320, 160, and 80 for deployment of Wi-Fi technologies of Wi-Fi 6E, Wi-Fi 7, and as we go forward, Wi-Fi 8, which is likely to come by 2028. So the combination of BharatNet plus Wi-Fi and along with PM-WANI is a powerful thing. We should aim to deploy public Wi-Fi hotspots in every village so that farmers, students can, for example, come to these spots such as Khurana stores, tea shops, etc., and can access the internet on their mobiles without worrying about mobile data limits. This will also introduce women and non-users to try internet for the first time. But when we talk of the remote or difficult terrains, mountains, islands, dense forests, we need to move to another technology, and that is we need the satellite connectivity, which will have to leapfrog the terrestrial barriers that are there to reach them. With the government's progressive approach now having clearly been laid down in the Telecom Act, that spectrum for SATCOM services would be administratively allocated, TRAI is also recommended enabling provisions to further enable rollout in a sustainable manner, focusing on creating incentives for this nascent sector. So in order to ensure ubiquitous connectivity across our country's vast and varied geography, no single technology is a silver bullet or the answer. In fact, overdependence on any one technology, be it a fixed broadband, mobile broadband, or any other technology, would neither be adequately efficient nor sustainable for the modern era. We need a holistic digital infrastructure ecosystem, a calibrated combination of fiber, mobile broadband, public Wi-Fi, and satellite broadband, coupled with IXPs, CDNs, data centers, undersea cable infrastructure, each playing a complementary role in the overall digital infrastructure setup. Now I come to the point of the affordability. Despite the mobile coverage, as is being said, reaches 95% of the population, the gap between the urban and rural users is quite high. As I brought out, it's about 67%. This indicates that the urban-rural divide cannot be attributed only to the lack of coverage, which is really the supply side of the issue. One also has to look at the demand side and understand what are the reasons for this gap, which is huge. So let's talk of the affordability part. Even when the networks are available, the cost of access can be prohibitive for low-income rural families. Yes, mobile data in India is far cheaper than it was a decade ago and one of the cheapest in the world. The average cost has plunged from 269 per GB in 2014 to just about 9 to 10 rupees in 2024, which is a 96% drop, making India one of the most affordable markets. But on the other hand, the fixed broadband cost per GB is only about 1.5 rupees as opposed to rupees 10 per GB of the mobile. The cost of devices is also a major factor. Industry research has found that even a stripped down 4G smartphone priced around 3,000 rupees struggles to find buyers in villages since it remains costly compared to the basic 2G handsets. And I'm sure Pankaj, when he talks of this, he would throw more light on this. Even a GSMA study indicates that the device affordability as a persistent barrier in rural areas. So we need some innovative solutions are required for this, perhaps through low-cost device financing, targeted subsidies, or special rural tariffs to ensure that no one is left offline due to cost constraints. The advantage of extending Wi-Fi hotspots in rural areas is that even low-cost non-4G handsets with Wi-Fi capability can be used. So one of the initial cost element of the cost of a handset can be overcome by this. So cost of these handsets need to be much lower. The cost of these handsets would be much lower than that of 4G handsets and would be within reach of the rural population. I think wherever affordable smartphones and good data plans have been introduced, they have connected millions of new users. So improved affordability can certainly unlock the latent demand that is there. The third barrier is the human factor, which is the digital awareness and the skills. An IAMI Kanta report of 2023 on state of the internet brings out the barriers to the adoption of internet. Surprisingly, when you go through the report, the top 2 to 3 main reasons are too difficult to understand its use, not aware of the benefits of internet, and then comes the affordability aspect. Well, one would have thought that it would be affordability which is the number one, but surprisingly in this study and even in the GSMA study, both of them tend to indicate that the top two are either the rural public is not aware of the benefits of internet, they've never used the internet, they've never seen an internet, and therefore or the lack of literacy which is inhibiting them from taking on the use of internet. So the other problem, of course, is according to studies, about 38% of Indian households are only considered digitally illiterate. This is a Oxfam 222 report. While this is for the country, in the rural areas it will maybe even lower. So without digital lack of local language content and services further exacerbates this. Without digital literacy and relevant content, connectivity and devices alone will not be able to close the divide. Focus should be, while we are doing the literacy, digital literacy campaign, focus should also be on online safety and trust by raising awareness of misinformation, scams, phishing, and fraudulent practices. Anybody who's first onto it is more susceptible. A new person who's getting into internet without the experience is more susceptible to this. So when we look at the digital literacy part of it, we also need to warn the bad effects of it so that they are well aware of it. The government is taking several initiatives to address these concerns on literacy, local language content through initiatives such as Bhashini and the PMG Disha PM Gramin Digital Saksharta Abhiyan, and focus on AI-driven skilling. So the goal is an inclusive network where fiber brings core capacity to rural hubs, mobile towers and Wi-Fi hotspots distribute that connectivity to the schools, health centers, and community centers, and satellites fill the gaps where ground networks can't reach. This multi-pronged approach, with enabling policy environment and consistent long-term commitments, will ensure that no village is left in digital darkness, bringing truly universal connectivity within our grasp, unleashing immense economic potential. As we know, a 10% increase in broadband penetration can add more than 3% GDP growth in India, leading us to the goal of a $1 trillion digital economy by 26 and reaching about 20% of the GDP, the digital economy to reach about 20% of the GDP by 2030. By bridging Bharat and India, by making connectivity available as ubiquitous as roads and electricity, we close the divide through a digital bridge, a bridge to a future with great economic growth and upliftment of India's hinterlands. Thank you.
May I now invite Dr. Devesh Tyagi, CEO NIXI, for his inaugural address.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me and giving this opportunity. My fellow colleagues at the dais, Pankaj ji, Pradeep ji, Shyam ji, Ambika ji, and Anil Tandon ji. Esteemed dignitaries present here. So first of all, I would start with a little bit introduction of NIXI. You may be aware, but we are a body under Ministry of Electronics and IT. And we work for principle Internet for all in our country. Prime three objectives for which we are bestowed with are, first one is that allocation of .in domains. You are aware that domain is a part of Internet through which we are accessing our data or something through websites. You must have listened that NIC.in, gov.in, pmindia.in, these all are being allocated and managed by us. Second function which we do is that we are National Internet Registry for our country. And under this, we allocate IPv4, IPv6 addresses, which is also forming the integral part of our Internet. And third basic principle that we work on is creating and establishing exchange points across the country. We are having 77 exchange points at present, and wherein we provide interconnections to different ISPs and make their operation feasible. With these three basic principles of basic services, we are ensuring that the Internet is available for all of our countrymen. And Internet, I feel, is the basic tool through which we can address the problem of digital divide. You are aware that at present we are having 955 million of Internet users. And it is all attributed to Digital India program, which was inaugurated in 2015 by our Honorable Prime Minister. And program and policy and schemes which comes under this particular program, Digital India program. NIXI is also integral part of extending this Digital India program to our citizens. And we are trying to reach out internet to all our citizens wherever they are. What I mean by this? We feel that the services of the internet which if one person is able to access in metro cities, he should get similar services wherever he is. Maybe he is in smaller cities, he is in the hilly regions. And to make this possible, we are working on internet exchange points. Internet exchange point basically is implemented for minimizing the delays in the internet. So you are going to website, you are typing. Previously, you must have seen that we get the response, and response time was very big, and you have to wait, circling around, and then website comes. We went into this and found that this was happening because even the data which was intended to be consumed in our country has to travel across the globe and reach to the internet users. And the solution came in form of exchange points. So this is minimizing. Now you can type your website name and the response time is great, apart from other things, other steps which the government has taken. Second thing which we had done is that we had given .in domains at a very basic minimal price to our countrymen. And you will be happy to note that we are currently operating 42 lakhs .in domain across the country. And most of them are being used by our distant citizens, apart from the government, which is the major user of .in domain. And you will appreciate that people like a small laptop repair shop, people like selling a small garment shop, making paintings in the very far places in our country are using .in domain for their benefits. They need not to be digital literate. We have made such a model, they need not to be fully digital literate in that. So the way we work is that there is a registrant who is the end user, and there is a registrar, and then registry, that is .NIXI. And registrant are the person who is extending full support to registrants so that they make their domain operational on the day one. Another thing which we do is that we allocate IPv4, IPv6 addresses blocks in our country. And now, previously these were given through APNIC, which is in Australia basically, Brisbane. And it was very difficult to get those IP addresses. So you see that currently we are having around 400,000 plus ISPs registered in our country. And out of them, more than 1,500 plus are operational. These are all being provided IP addresses by NIXI itself. We manage that. And another promotional policy for bridging the digital divide gap by way of providing internet to our citizens in affordable manner, we have done that with all the IPv4 blocks. We are providing IPv6 address free of cost. This is done to ensure, because you see IPv4 addresses are limited in number, and in case one ISP gets IPv4 address, he will be at suppose /2324, it is little bit technical. I will say 256 IP addresses and 512 IP addresses. Then it is very small resource for them. But with IPv6 address, there is no limit. They can scale up their operations without any problem. As I had mentioned in my speech, that another part which we do is to make internet accessible for all, and we are working in almost all the domain problem areas which our country is right now facing. The infrastructure part I had covered already, that through the exchange point we are able to give the minimized delay internet to everybody in the country. Another problem which is about the digital literacy, we are having two schemes for that. One we call it as IP Guru, another we call it as NIXI Academy. And these all two services are free of cost. Through IP Guru, we are promoting adoption of IPv6 address across the country, which I see as a future, because in case you have to escalate your service, you have to increase your services, IPv6 is the only answer. Another service through NIXI Academy we provide is about internet configurations and DNS studies. And this helps us to our ISPs basically to provide their services at the doorsteps of our citizens. And these two services are both free. Another part which we do is, we believe that next generation of internet users will come from non-English speaking fraternity. We are having 955 million internet users, and mostly of them are English literate. But we have to onboard other citizens as well, for which we had started, or we had combined with global internet service providers. We call it as Universal Acceptance Scheme. And this is ICANN scheme, and NIXI is part of this scheme in our country. So through Universal Acceptance, what we have done, we are providing domain names in cities in all 22 official languages. Say suppose somebody is there in Tamil Nadu and he doesn't know any other languages except Tamil. We are providing domain name in his own language. So what we are doing in this is we had combined with Ministry of Culture. Now how you find out detail about your village? You have to go search internet, then you will / and you will be reaching to your village. This is not possible for the common man. So now he will go and type his village name, all other domain details will come there, and automatically he will get information about his village wherever he is. So this is one of the initiatives through which we are trying to bring on board another users or bridging the digital divide in our country. And I will, because my time is short, I will just try to finish in giving one more example. We feel that to bring more internet user on our internet domain, we have to offer our services very safely and securely. We have to make our citizens confident that whenever they come to internet, there will not be a fraud with them. For which we are now doing zonifications of our services, and recently you must have heard that we had created bank.in and fin.in domain. Why we had done is because most of our citizen comes for the financial and banking services on the internet. And when we went into the study for last 1 year, we had found that the certain study clearly says that more than 67% of frauds are happening in the name of banks and financial institutions. This bank.in and fin.in zones will be managed by a IDBRT, that is the RBI appointed agency, and they will allocate these zones to the banks and financial industry in our country. So whenever all the banks which are currently operating in our country has been mandated to adopt to bank.in domain, and all the financial institutions has been mandated to come on .fin.in domain. So whenever in future you will be receiving a link from bank.in and fin.in, you only consider those links as that these are the genuine links. All other links you can discard. So this way we will be helping in bringing trust on our internet, and we will be able to bridge out the digital divide. I am sorry that I had many things to say, but I had my time. I will, you can discuss me this offline also, and we are trying to put the digital divide as a primary thing to address at NIXI. Once again, I will thank to the organizer for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Devesh. And if anybody has questions for him, the panelists will be around, and you can please meet them offline and discuss. Our next speaker for the inaugural session, Mr. Pankaj Mohindroo, Chairman, ICEA.
Good morning, my friends on the dais and all of you. I think this is a very provocative topic, because can merely digitization improve economic growth? Yes, it can. But I think I'd like to highlight what are the structural challenges of India, right? Before I mention that, I'd like to tell you about some good news about the extraordinary growth we've had in mobile phone manufacturing and export, and so we start on a positive note, and on the electronic manufacturing. So electronics overall, we've grown about 400% in the last 7 years. It's been an unprecedented growth. We are now crossing 135 billion of manufacturing and 37 billion of exports. Mobile phones, we've grown, it's a breathtaking growth of 2,500%. And we are now, I would say, big boys with $63 billion of manufacturing and $24 billion of exports. Chances are that when you travel to the US, you have a 40% probability that the phone will be made in India. And there is an extraordinary growth in the supply chain management, from the foundational industries like cells, semiconductors, display, assembly, and other foundational industries, to the entire sub-assembly and component supply chain. Like almost, we export a lot of the components to even China today. So it's become a big boy, big scale industry. Coming to the structural issues of India, Anil said was showing some concern, but I think the extraordinary work which our mobile operators and infrastructure companies have done is truly breathtaking. I mean, the circumstances of our regulations and our governance, which we face in manufacturing, but this sector faces across the country. I mean, every village, everything, there is, impediments in the way. So it's been an extraordinary growth. And the first structural defect I like to tell you is we are the only country where mobile phone value sale is more than service sale. This is not there in any other country in the world. So what does it indicate? Are Indians so wealthy that they buy expensive mobile phones, or our services sector is getting sorely underpriced. I think I'll leave that to all of you to see what is possible. But it's very unsustainable because the whole world can't be wrong. If you see Western countries, if in a country the mobile phone value sale is say $10 billion, the service revenues would be $15 to $20 billion. So something is structurally not correct with India. So I think the concern which Anil's expressed that we have very affordability is not there, I think I would not agree with that. I think our tariffs are incredibly affordable. But on the handset side, there is something very unique happening. Our volumes of smartphones have remained stable. In fact, they've slightly gone down in the last 4-5 years. But the value has grown 100%. So our ASPs are now almost 20,000 rupees from 10,000 rupees. So this is a very unique phenomena because our aspirations of our people, which you see, you don't see nano car today, you don't see Alto, etc., because the aspirations have grown, but affordability is not there at the bottom of the pyramid, which is the lower middle class and the middle class. Affordability is not there. And why is the industry not able to respond to that? China's per capita has grown to about $14,000. So China is a mid-income country, and US is at $80,000. And these are the two countries who are designing mobile phones. Core design, semiconductors. And the only profitability is there in the upper tier. So nobody today designs phones. This 3,000 rupee phone doesn't exist, Anil, anymore. Even 7,000 rupee doesn't exist. I mean, it is maybe some end-of-life products, etc. So this is a major weakness of our industry, which I am expressing, which is coming in the way of this. How can we overcome this? If India fires on all cylinders, which is that we go into the semiconductors, and we leapfrog. And that is relevant for both smartphones and for networks also, because the 5G architecture is such that, the deeper penetration, what you were expressing for rural areas, etc., will only come through very smart semiconductors, which is, we have to leapfrog. And unfortunately, we are not doing any work on that. Although we have fabs coming up and packaging units coming up, but the core semiconductors is not something, for this cutting edge technology is not something we are working on. So we have to design products today, because we have the scale, for the 5 to 6 billion bottom of the pyramid people who are in India's space. 18% of the world's population, which is India, is sustaining itself on 3.5% of the world GDP. Though that's a terrible imbalance. But there are 5 billion people who are in the similar state, which could be very hungry for these products. So when you design those products, you achieve this objective of this penetration. Although we've not done so bad, 700 million smartphones are there in the country, working, right? We are able to sell only 150 billion per year, but the life has slightly increased. So the percolation of the smartphones, the second hand and the third hand is going into the rural areas. And even in villages, we are finding about 10 to 15% penetration of smartphones. Our feature phones still continue to exist. There are 250 to 270 million feature phones which are population. We still sell 60 million feature phones in a year. That's not a good statistics. I mean, this should not have, we should not be having feature phones anymore, because it is totally contrary to the digitization ambition of the country. But it will only happen if what I said, that we are able to design products at scale, and the semiconductors, we have to find the niche, right? there is 7 nanometer spare capacity today in the world. So it's not necessary that we leapfrog to 2, 3 nanometer, because 7 nanometer is good enough to create great products, both for networks and for this. So this is the aggregation we have to bring together. Last, I'll raise the basic structural challenges of India, right? I think the first major structural challenge is the participation of women in the workforce. Is a very big structural change, which we don't find in south of India, but in the north it is very pronounced. So that is a very big challenge for India. The second structure challenge of India is that the GVCs, global value chains, have almost 75% of the world trade, 95% of the world trade in electronics and telecom products. India's share in GVCs is only 2%. And we've seen what magic lead firms of GVCs do when they decide to make India a manufacturing hub. The example of Apple is clear in front of us. Unfortunately, our environment, what happens is that when GVCs come to India, they become domestic companies because of the protection, which, the mindset of protection, which is all pervasive. You have, for example, Unilever is there for the last 100 years, but they are almost like a domestic company. The third structural defect is we don't have giant companies. Very few, Reliance, Tata, few companies, public sector companies are giant companies. And the engine of growth in the world is only giant companies. The big tiger economies grow on giant companies. They are the mother hen. And we keep doing lip service about MSME. I'll come to that little separately. But this doesn't happen in that manner. Only 9 Fortune 500 companies. China, which had one Fortune 5 country, now has 140 Fortune 500 companies, right? And our big companies also grow horizontally in the country and are not export oriented. That's another structural challenge, right? Yeah, I mean, if it was semiconductors to smartphones, it's fine, but salt and all that stuff. So this does not make global dominance possible. These are the basic structural issues which digitization per se cannot take care of. The last structural challenge which is related to digitization is the fact that India's manufacturing is only 2.9% of the world's manufacturing, and China is 33%. So China has captured a lot of the world's manufacturing through the help of ICT and electronic. India had a very strong fundamental industrial base on mechanical and electrical, but when this transition is happening, which is very rapid, I'm not talking about Industry 4.0, but the stage before that. Even there is, electronics has permeated that. Every industry is going electronic, and India's weakness in electronics, which is slowly eroding now, is one of the causes that why we are so weak. So I would say that digitization per se cannot create sustainable growth. It is a combination of many factors. The thing is that a major economy like India has to fire on all cylinders and not on just one cylinder of digitization and communication. Thank you.
Smartphones below 15,000. And we got 3 million plus views on that particular story. So yeah, indeed, there is a need for that kind of.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mohindroo. And may I now call upon Ms. Ambika Khurana, Chief Regulatory and Corporate Affairs Officer, Vodafone Idea.
Good morning, everyone. My colleagues on the dais, the organizing team, ladies and gentlemen, it's actually a privilege to be here this morning and to be at the Leadership Forum by Voice and Data. This telecom leadership forum over the years has become the hub for discussions, for ideation, and for innovation. So it's a privilege to be a part of the jury member, and it's a privilege to be here amongst you this morning. Many interesting points that have been spoken by you. Some we may totally agree with and, design the strategic roadmap of the country. Some we would want to debate further to see how to harness and how to challenge so that we are able to leverage the opportunities we have. But at the end of the day, what we are standing in front of is a huge base of 1.17 billion subscribers, sir, who do have access to very affordable telecom services, right? The cost is amongst the lowest in the world, and we stand very proudly of the fact that in spite of having very low ROC and very high challenges from a regulatory and financial perspective, the telecom service providers of the country are able to connect about 95% of the country's population. It's a very big achievement in our country, and while we don't stop there, we know the road ahead is a lot. There's a lot more to be done. I'll be covering some of our asks for that. But still, as a country, we have come way ahead. So when we stand today, and in spite of the world saying that about 10% of their GDP comes from the digital economy, India today is an absolute exception. The numbers that were quoted earlier about RBI's report of the digital economy contributing to 20% of our national economy is something that everyone in this room really needs to be proud of. There's a long way that we've come to achieve that. So as telcos, while we deliver affordable, high-quality 4G, 5G services to 95% of our population, we do feel very humbled by the fact that 4G supports over 700 million users. And that's what's effectively bridging the nation's digital divide, especially in the rural and semi-urban areas. And increasingly, of course, 5G expanse has been the highest in the country. And there are many lessons that the rest of the world and rest of the telcos and rest of the countries are learning from the India model. So definitely a lot of great work has been done by many of our colleagues in the industry. An achievement of this scale in such a large, geographically diverse, spread out populous country is now being made very smart through the transformative power of AI. Across areas, we deploy AI solutions, and I'm not talking about just my company, but different telcos that whom we represent, in terms of predictive maintenance, real-time network optimization, personalized consumer engagement, and even fraud management. So one of our senior colleagues spoke about safe and trusted networks. We truly understand the importance of providing very safe and secure services to each one of us as subscribers. Talking of that, the telecom service companies work extremely closely with DOT, TRI, with multiple law enforcement agencies, and amongst each other to learn and share different practices. Today, in terms of the SMSs that each one of us receives, the calls that we receive, they go through very stringent, multiple interventions to ensure they are more safe and secure than ever before. Right? A simple example we were discussing this morning was about the traceability of each and every SMS that comes to our inbox. Right? With the principal entity, telemarketer binding, the entire chain gets traced, tracked, ensured that it is made as spam-proof, as clean, as clear that is possible, and is constantly improving thanks to the deployment of AI solutions. So the systems are learning, and what we need to do as different stakeholders is also to join our hands towards this responsible framework of trust and security. So not just the telcos and the regulators, but we would really urge the digital ecosystem also to partner with us to adopt some of these interventions and to support in terms of ensuring that the digital communication services and the telecom communication services are both equally secure and safe for each one of us as a subscriber. So a system of collective responsibility and accountability. One of the other points I want to talk about is right of way. So, sir, you mentioned ROW and the requirement that even after the guidelines came out in 2024, there are still gaps on the ground. So we have been in conversations with the Department of Telecom that as we continue to expand service, especially in the hinterland, we definitely want ROW rules to be streamlined. Large states like Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, Punjab, and even Kerala have not really endorsed the rules so far. There is a lot more to be done on the ground in terms of very simple, very practical, very doable operational tools like just streamlining the portals and streamlining the application processes. and we somehow fail to understand why those gaps still exist, right? There seem to be such simple things that can easily be resolved. And that would really help us in further connecting to the last mile, to the last man and woman of the country standing in the remotest parts of the country. Talking about connectivity, sir, we also spoke about satellites and the excitement with which the world is watching to see how satellites, like terrestrial services, will be able to offer voice, data, and messaging solutions. We do firmly believe that to a very big extent, the services are the same, and for same and competing services, the rules and regulations also need to be similar. I think one of the things we were talking about just a little while back was in terms of pricing, right? The telecom services in our country pay almost, all of us pay almost 26% to spectrum and allied costs at an average, right? 26% of our AGR, which is extremely high. And just quoting numbers from a very recently released GSMA report, the lowest in the world is for China and Japan, which is just about 2% of their average revenues per year. But in India, it ranges from 20% to 50% plus for the 3 private telcos. So we are talking about extremely high costs, and here comes a set of recommendations for satellite, which is kind of, I would say, very asymmetrical, which is not balanced and doesn't provide the same kind of framework for competing services. So one of the requests that as telcos we would be making to the government would be to adopt a very fair hat so that there is competitive pricing, there is competitive framework of management, not only of spectrum acquisition and costs, but also of devices. Devices is again something that got spoken of earlier. And we do feel that our country would have probably achieved a lot more had we incentivized the transition and shift of 2G users to a 4G usage at a faster pace. So there were small, simple solutions that could have adopted and hastened. And so you spoke about, Pankaj, a little while back about the large number of feature phones that are still stalled, right? And that pains all of us. So to be able to bridge that digital divide and to connect faster, we think that not just subsidization or cross-subsidization of satellite end user equipment, but it is very important where the country is connected today through wireless network to be able to subsidize and offer and have a transition roadmap from a 2G to a 4G and 5G planner. So, of course, discussions with DOT continue. Our long-term interests as an economy, in any case, are dependent on a very robust, very resilient, very secure, and a very scalable network. COVID and beyond, recent geopolitical situations, tensions and beyond, we do realize as a country that the only way we can progress ahead is to ensure that this telecom infrastructure, the backbone and motherboard of the other services of our country, continues to be strong and resilient, for which the PLI scheme, the R&D support, future-looking skills programs, and very progressive regulatory frameworks are definitely needed towards Atmanirbharta and towards ensuring that we are able to serve our fellow subscribers. On that level of optimism, I would just thank again the organizers, Voice and Data team, to invite me today to have such a very inspiring panel put together, which is not just talking about the challenges that we face, but also looking at what needs to be corrected in a timely, practical manner so that we are able to take our services ahead. Congratulations to every nominee who's been nominated for the award. Look forward to very interesting deliberations during the course of the day. Thank you very much.